So we've decided to put a surgical team and crew into a submarine, reduce it way down in size, and inject it into an artery.
You mean I'm going along?
As part of the crew, yes.
Wait a minute. They can't shrink me.
Our miniaturizer can shrink anything.
But I don't want to be miniaturized.
Alright, so I'm continuing my Proteus project. As I stated in the last video, I have a companion project that I started on, and that is an exterior of just the Proteus that I'm going to paint and weather. No interior to it, and I'm looking to make a diorama with that as well. So I got a lot accomplished on that, and I'll show you here in a moment. I got the entire build on it put together and started painting it, and start working on some weathering techniques. All right, let's see what we got accomplished. Alright, so I begun building my exterior only Proteus to do the weathering on it. This build is just going to be done and dirty, nothing special, no extra scratch building, adjusting, anything. So I'm just about ready to put it together. I went ahead and glued in the window that I have with the Tamiya smoke on the inside there, so it'll obscure the interior, which doesn't have one. And it's a little messy, but it's what I want it to be, actually, because it kind of looks like condensation. If you look through the window, it almost looks like there's condensation, and so that's going to work the way I want it to. And because it's darkened, once it's sealed up, you're not really going to see in there other than see that little bit of reflection through it. So that front window is glued in place and ready to go on there. On the bottom of the kit, I already have the front grille attached, and all I did was paint the inside of it flat black, and then I cut out some tape, masking tape, to fit right over top of the exposed area in the back there. So once I paint it, I can peel that off from the outside of the kit and expose the black paint behind it, and that other black outline there will be white with the rest of it. I painted some silver, chrome silver, on these bars on the front. They're eventually going to have that darker gray, but I want to be able to chip it off and see some metal beneath for some wear and weathering in that. So I started with a base coat of the some chrome silver on there as well, and then I used the same silver on the side grills, and they're drying right now too, and I put it over the entire part as well. So same thing, I can chip off edges of it once I get the white paint on it to expose some of the silver beneath, so it looks like these parts are metal. The rest of the sub is not really metal. It would be like a fiberglass. So I was looking at some of the screen stills. It almost looks like a dark, like a black even. At the end of the movie, whenever the back fin is chipping away, there's a real sizable chunk of paint missing from the model, and it looks really dark underneath it. So I'll probably go with something more like a dark gray or a medium gray, maybe a couple different shades of it, which would be more like a primer on the inside. I mean on the fiberglass before they painted it white, so I can have some damage on there as well on the outside of it. So as soon as those parts dry and I get those ready to go, this part here is already masked off. I'm going to mask off the grill parts on these and glue them in place, back them with some black styrene so it darkens behind them, and then I'm ready to put the kit together. And that's pretty much all that's going to be there for the prep before the build. Once I get it all together, the appropriate parts will be masked off. The dome won't be on top of it yet, and I'll be able to start painting it. And then once I just get an initial coat of paint on it, be ready to go ahead and do my weathering and get the rest of that going. So this kit's going to go together pretty fast. It's going to be pretty straightforward, and I'm already happy with some of the progress I've made. All right, and I also, on the back of the sub, I went ahead and painted some flat black on those windows because they'll be masked off as well, and then those will stay black when the rest of the sub is painted. And the nice thing about building this kit with weathering is that if I get some bad paint on there like that, I'm going to leave it because that will work in my favor. Once I get a flat coat on that and we start weathering it, it's going to look great. It's going to be what I want it to be, you know, the defects on it. And then I have the Aztec dummy masking set for the Proteus that I'm using for the main sub build. But one part I'm not going to use are these little window covers, because I'm not going to glue in the windows before I paint it. Those are going to go in last on the main kit. But this one, the windows are glued in already. So once this finishes drying, I'm going to mask those off with that, so that when everything is built, and this will be masked off as well because this also has, where's that at? It's hard to see. Those pieces right there. So I can mask off these back windows. I can mask off the whole front windows as well. And I already have the bottom scoop masked off, and I'm going to mask off the two grills too. So once it's all built here, and it'll be ready to build as soon as this all dries and I get it masked, then I'll be able to paint the entire outside of it without getting any of those other parts covered with the white and get them protected. So it's going to work out great. All right. Alright, so I am ready to go ahead and begin gluing the two halves of the kit together. Let me just kind of go over again what I did in order to mask off the parts that I don't want to be painted white. Because once I get this glued together, the entire top and bottom is going to all be painted white, and then start the weathering. So as I showed you previously, I used the Aztec dummies masking to mask off those windows that are already glued in. I also did the same on the back with a flat black there, so that'll keep that the color I want. I also used some of that, and it wasn't part of the kit, but I just cut pieces out, and you can see I covered those side grills on the top and the bottom, so that won't cover up the silver either. And then I showed you the front intake here. That's attached, and I have that masked as well, and I can peel all of these off from the outside. Use an X-Acto knife, and all of these will come loose from the outside, so I can remove that and keep them unpainted from the white. On the bottom of the kit, I had a few of the extra pieces of the photo etching from Paragraphics, so I went ahead and glued those onto there, just to give it a little bit of detail. That part is from the kit there in the middle, and I did the same on the other side. As you can see, these side parts here I glued into place. They're not going to be movable for this particular kit. They don't have to move. So the side fins, I'm going to have them glued into place. Likewise, I'll glue the back fin on here shortly once I'm done putting it all together. That can be added in after the fact. Goes right in those two slots. So that doesn't have to be glued in prior to the putting the kit together. And then I put this off here. There we go. Okay. I painted flat black on the inside, so it would not have any images shining through that window there on the inside. And I put some masking tape, as you can see, on the bottom and on the top. And that can be removed from the outside. That'll be easy enough to just poke through and pull back out again when I'm done. And then on the inside of those intake grills, I back coated them with some black styrene. And it comes that way. It's a nice version of styrene. You can get it in the UV resistant black that light does not shine through. So that will just give the black behind the grills once I get it glued. So that's all ready to go. everything is masked off that doesn't get painted, and I'm ready to glue it together. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and then we'll be ready to attach the back fins, the tail fin, onto it, and go ahead and start painting the kit itself. Alright, and here's the glued together Proteus that turned out really well. Just a very slight areas. That little lip there is raised a bit that I can sand down a bit, but otherwise it went together pretty easily. And it's nice and solid, so all I have to do now is put on the tail fin, glue that on, and the back rudder, glue that in place as well, and then it'll be ready to paint. The other pieces like the dome and the hatches will go on once I'm done painting it, and they'll be painted separately, and be able to put those on. Then I can start the weathering. Let's see what we can do then. And here's my completed Proteus build for the weathering version. I have the tail fin and the back fin on there as well. Everything is glued in place and masked. There's a little view of the kit. Not a really hard kit to build. Obviously my main model I'm building, I'm doing a lot of extra things on it, so that's what really extends it out when you're doing the painting, scratch building. I'll be doing lighting as well, but just a straight build. I built this in about 2 days. It didn't take too much time at all. So now that I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and sand off a few of the places just to finish up some of the rough parts. Like the front of this here has a little bit of a noticeable line on it. I want to sand that smooth, but not a whole lot, because in the end this is going to be pretty beat up and chewed up. So what I've decided to go with is kind of a dark gray underneath that I can chip off some of the white to show underneath. I'm going to use some German gray from Tamiya, and then on top of that I'm going to spray the Duplicolor Polar Arctic white, get a nice coat, and then I'm going to dull coat the whole thing so I can do some weathering. And like I said, I'm starting my hand at this. I haven't done weathering before. I figured this would be an easy kit to do because there's not a lot to it. It's just going to look really grungy and dirty and that kind of stuff. So I've kind of decided on 2 other colors from Tamiya, some acrylics. I'm going to go with a flat earth to give it kind of that dingy brown dirty look, and I'm going to go with a flat flesh as well to give it a little more of the yellowish off-white kind of a color on top of the white to give it some contrast. And then as I said, I'll have this this gray underneath, the German gray, so when I chip off some of the parts it'll be a nice contrast between the white, and I like how all 3 of those colors look together. I think that's a nice combo. So so once I get most of this, I'm going to get that gray coating on it like I said, and then we'll go and get the white on top of that and start the weathering. Alright, so I wanted to go ahead and do a little bit of testing of some of my Tamiya colors just to see what I'm going to end up with before I do it on the actual kit. So I have ironically enough, the fantastic Voyage animated series Voyager, which I never really much liked. It's okay, but it was kind of a cheap knockoff of the Proteus, but it's white, so it does what I want it. So I went ahead and put the same white on it and put a flat coat, and I've done a little bit of tests on it, and I can always spray over it and try it again. So the wiping part doesn't seem to work as well. Putting on the thin wash and then wiping it off, it looks a little too much. So over here I put it on and then use the paper towel to just dab it off and just get a little more model effect to it. So I kind of like that. and I have both the flat earth and the flat flash on top of it to lighten it up a bit in spots. But I'll keep playing with it and get an idea, but that's kind of what I'm going for. Maybe not quite that dark, but give it the idea that it's really grunged up and dirty from its trip through the body. So, all right, so interesting fact about this kit from when I was a kid. They made this back in the late 60s and 70s because it was an animated series of Fantastic Voyage, which oddly enough I never really saw back then. But I did see advertisements on other kits from Aurora, who made the models back then. That's how I got started in modeling. And they talked about the Fantastic Voyage Voyager. And not knowing about the animated series, and there were no pictures of it, and no internet, of course, back then, I just assumed it was the Proteus. And I was looking for that as a kid, you know, for the longest time, thinking, wow, I'd love to have a Proteus kit. But turns out it was this, which I probably would have thought was kind of cool back then, but I would have been disappointed that it wasn't the Proteus. So this is your punishment, Voyager, for being crappy. So use it as my my guinea pig. So I'll keep working with that a bit till I get the right look. I do like that from the side. That looks kind of cool. So I'm kind of in the right direction with it, especially with the modeled look rather than the wiping, that kind of stuff. So all right, so let's see what we can come up with more on this. All right, so I've got a coating of the German gray from Tamiya onto the Proteus. This will be the undercoat. That'll chip away the paint, so you'll see that underneath it'll be a little darker. And what I did now is I put some little bits of tape on different locations where I can have some pre-chipped paint once I paint it, just in some random spots, including that little spot back there on the back rudder, which is a little larger in the actual movie, but I don't want it to be quite that noticeable. So so once I paint it white, I can pull those off and have some of the dark gray shining through there, poking through, and then I can chip away some other pieces as well, so it looks like some wear and tear on the sub. I covered those front grill bars with some tape as well to keep it gray, and there's silver under that, so I've already noticed a little bit some of the silver peeling off with the paint, which is exactly what I want to see when I pull that off. A little bit of silver exposed underneath it. So this is ready to go. I really like the Tamiya paints. They're a little pricier, so I haven't used them in the past, but really nice quality paint for sure. This gray went on really nice and smooth. It's spotty, but I didn't want it to be painted a total coating, but it goes on really nice. It's a nice paint for sure. Easy to use, easy to clean up, so I really like the Tamiya a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and start painting this with some white, and then we'll start more of the weathering. Alright, so I got an initial coating of the Polar Arctic white on the top of it. Bottom is still gray. It's going on pretty good, covering up that dark gray without too much trouble. This Duplicolor paint's really nice. It's made for cars, obviously, so it's made to cover up paint and metal and things like that. So it works really well. Has a nice finish to it. So I'm going to let that dry right now, and then I'll paint the bottom as well. And then I'll remove that tape that I put on to leave the chip marks, and we'll start working on the weathering of that. Alright, so round 2 of testing my wash weathering, and I think I come up with a good way that I like it. I don't like it when it's completely colored in and the whole thing's really grungy, but I like it so it's spotty. So I went ahead and painted this again, put some more of the Arctic white on it, and I did a gloss coat this time to see if it wouldn't hold on to the paint quite as much, and it seems to be working well. So I tried a few ideas of some big streaks, and I might use some of those on some of the kit, but I really like this approach. A little close up there. There we go. And I think I'll stick with that, where I put on just little dabs and spots and little streaks, and so it maintains the white, but it's obviously been affected, and when I have chipping of paint going on and the gray underneath it, I think it'll look really good. So I like that approach. So I think I'll go ahead and get that on the kit. I do have most of the white completed. Sorry. Almost done with that. That's just drying right now. So once I get that completed, I want to put the decals on because they'll be weathered as well. But I think that's the approach I'm going to go with. There we go. That's a little better image of it. So yeah, so it basically, you can see things have affected it and it's slid along, and I'll just kind of make some lines in the direction of where the sub would be traveling along the sides of it, so to give that kind of a look. But I like that on top of the gloss, and then I can coat it with a satin when I'm done. So all right, it's coming along really well. All right, and there is my completed and painted Proteus that I'm going to do weathering on. I have everything put together and the decals in place. There's the U91035, better known as the Proteus. I have the little propulsion decals underneath. You can see there's the bottom hatch as well, and the top hatch is in place. I have the snorkel painted and glued in, and the only piece I'm going to do differently is this little piece of plastic that's going to go on top of that once I get a final gloss coat on this. I don't want that to get covered with the gloss. I have the foot pads in place, and I just used the decals as well, and they turned out really well. And I'm going to get, like I said, a gloss coat over this to keep those sealed in place. I took off the masking, so there's the back window that's showing the black through it. I also took off the front, so there's that black in the back, and it's a bit messy, but that's also fine. I want it to look like that. I'm going to really grunge this up quite a bit, and you can see some of the silver paint is peeking through that gray, and I'm going to chip off some more, so that looks really chewed up. So that looks really good. I like that. It looks like it's worn out, and I'm going to mess it up some more because that would take a lot of the damage. I haven't yet taken off those grills on the side, but I'll get those off here shortly. And there's that bottom hatch. So I'm ready to go ahead and begin the weathering techniques that I showed earlier in my video, and then we'll continue this in the next part. So that's going to wrap it up for today. A lot of progress done without doing the interior or any extra parts. This went together fairly easily, and I learned a lot from it, how to get it together and the problem areas that I'm going to run into when I'm clamping it together and gluing it. Likewise, painting it and getting a nice coat on it, because I want that on the top as well. So alright, so I'm really pleased with the progress here. So this is going to wrap it up for today. I'm going to go ahead and finish off this video with a few stills from the movie showing the Proteus in its final death throes, so you can kind of see what I'm going for. Alright, I will see you next time.